What is up, y'all? Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. We, of course, are The Alternates. I am your host, Brian Cullen, and with me is everyone's favorite, the Riker to my Picard, Clayton Stevens.
Hello, everybody.
Clayton, good to see you.
Great to see you.
We are remote today, still out of the studio, but it's not going to stop us. Nothing can stop us except ourselves.
Sure.
And we have done that a couple times. We have definitely stopped ourselves a couple times, but we are happy to be here. Good to see you on my screen. It is it'll hold me over until I get to see that beautiful face in person once again.
Can't wait.
Once we're back in the studio. We've got a really fun show lined up for you today. We've got a new little segment game thing. I don't know what you want to call it, but it was a fun idea that we came up with that we are trying out. It is in 2 parts, so today is part 1 of this new thing. I will intro that in just a little bit, because before we jump in, just want to take a quick second, ask you all to subscribe to the show on YouTube. That is youtube.com/thealternates. Go ahead and hit subscribe wherever you're listening to the podcast. Like the video, leave us a comment, drop a rating and review, and most importantly, share the show. That helps us with the algorithms. It'll help people just like you find us so that we can continue to build this incredible alt community. I got to say, the comments have been great on the YouTube videos. I haven't been as good at responding to them as I would like to be, but on our last episode, when we played What Players Are What Bands, we got some really good comments on that video. Some incredible calls on what players are what bands. Some that, as I read it, I was like, fuck, that might be better than anything I put out there.
We'll have to go
back to that episode, hit up the comment section, go see some of those. And then, if you got some, add your own.
Yeah.
But if you want to get a hold of us, you can do so by emailing the show, thealternatehoop@gmail.com. And go ahead, next time you're on TikTok, give us a follow at The Alternates NBA. Clayton, how are you, buddy?
I'm good. Big news this morning politically. Always an interesting conversation. We were talking about it a little before we started here, but the Queen is dead. My goodness. 96 years old. I don't know why it's so shocking. I don't know. I guess just because she existed for all of my life, all of my mother's life, essentially all of my father's life. It's pretty bizarre how long she had a reign as queen. So it's I don't know. It's a weird start to the day for some reason with that.
It is. And it's just a reminder to me how ignorant I am with, certain international political policies and the way certain things work. Like, I understand that England Parliament, I get that. Does the royal family have any real power, or is it just this kind of symbolic thing? Like they don't actually rule anything, right?
No, as far as I understand it. And they'll give a guy like the always controversial Prince Andrew, they go weird, Duke of, I don't know, somewhere. They'll give you a part of Northern Ireland or something. You go over.
Yeah, Duke of Epstein Island.
Where people aren't paying as much attention. We'll get you over there. Exactly. So, we'll be following the royal family here on the Alternates. Closely.
Yeah, in fact, I'm not watching basketball anymore until they bring the Queen back.
Until they've settled.
I am... pretty wild. You actually, I saw this morning, something when I got up that was she's in medical care. And then when we jumped on here, you were like, oh, you see the Queen's dead? And I was like, no, you delivered that news to me. I had no idea. I personally wasn't following it closely because I went down a rabbit hole this morning. This is very not alt and really not progressive, if I'm being honest, but I have an obsession with 80s and 90s tobacco marketing, specifically Camel.
Yeah.
Say what you want about the tobacco industry. Joe Camel is one of the greatest pieces of marketing ever. I was telling you, I have this very vivid, specific memory of being a kid in the car when my parents were driving. We're going down the 101 and we passed by a Camel billboard that had Joe Camel on it. And I remember in my head, like staring at it and just thinking, that Camel is the coolest fucking individual I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, it was like the ad agencies nailed it. Absolutely nailed it.
They really did, because like he had like a cool, like the smoke even looked cool. You know what I mean? Like it was like, there was just something about it. And there's like, it wasn't just billboards. It's hard to go back to this time, but there were TV ads, there were billboards, and they were full print, like you'd get your Sports Illustrated for kids. And it would just have a full Joe Camel in like a, NASCAR type jacket, ripping a Stogue in front of the pyramids. And you're just like, I mean, that guy's just awesome. I don't know how to explain it. I'm
fucking
9 and I'm
dude.
loving this. Disturbing how much that really entered our subconscious. But God damn, I love it too. I can't help it.
And I don't know if it's the nostalgia factor or what it is. But so
it's a trauma,
the rabbit holes that I go
nostalgia,
down,
all of it wrapped up in one.
Because like I'll every now and then kind of go digging for like vintage like Camel gear, because they had all kinds of like hats and jackets and shirts,
backpacks,
and all kinds of stuff back in the 90s. And I'm even the Camel font is fucking rad. It's so cool looking. And I, even now as an adult, I'll come across stuff and I see it and I have that same, God damn, Joe is cool. His name was Joe Cool, wasn't it? Oh no, Joe Cool is
Joe Camel. Joe Cool is Snoopy.
Joe Camel. Joe Cool is Peanuts, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, Joe Cool, smoke a cigarette and maybe you can live up to that name. But all right, let's jump into it. That's enough lobbying for the tobacco industry today.
Yeah, Camel,
we'll
get
be back
in touch
with that on the next episode.
Yeah, Camel, get in touch. We'd love to sponsor you. We'd love to get the Camel on the show. Something.
Look, podcasting, video creation, YouTube content, it's a pretty lawless area. It's kind of the Wild West of entertainment. Look, Camel, you've been kicked out of billboards. You're not allowed to advertise in magazines anymore. No more commercials. Mm-hmm. Get at us. We are your open door back into this world.
Exactly right. And we have a lot of kids, young kids who listen, who could be smoking soon.
Fresh, untouched lungs, just waiting for you to get in there.
Just waiting for a watermelon Camel to call to them.
If you see an actual camel, they're like the least cool thing ever. They just spit and they're lazy. Like
they're just mean.
Yeah. Truly incredible. All right. Actually, let's just start our own tobacco business, and it will make an ostrich cool. Like, just find like the least cool animal and make it cool, and it'll be Oscar cool.
This is a great idea.
Oscar the ostrich.
A great idea.
Yeah. Copyright that, where nobody's stealing that idea from us. Okay, so I'm going to give a little backstory as to where this new idea came from. So obviously everyone knows the drama around Kevin Durant this summer, requested a trade, and basically said, I want to be traded or you have to fire Sean Marks and Steve Nash. And that created a huge discussion, all of this stuff. And then a joint piece of what press, what is it called? What's the word I'm searching for here?
Yeah, I mean, it was a press release.
Statement. It was a joint statement was released by the Brooklyn Nets and the boardroom, Kevin Durant's company, that essentially said, we've worked things out. Durant is staying. He's not going anywhere. We're running it back. And then the big discussion on all the different shows and podcasts and all that was, well, how weird is this going to be now for Steve Nash to coach Kevin Durant, who he knows basically requested that he get fired, demanded that he get fired, or he wanted to leave. And so as that happened, a lot of people were speculating on how awkward it's going to be. It's not going to be that weird. They're professionals. And I got to shout out Mo DeKeel, good friend of mine, rad dude, amazing basketball coverage.
Yep.
I heard him on a podcast talk about it, and he said, it's not that crazy. Look, this is the life of a head coach. It's probably the least secure job you could hold on an NBA team. Coaches are constantly dealing with rumors about being fired and worried about that. And so that got the wheels going in my head, because I was like, that's true. Like, what an awful job, right? Like, it's even more concentrated than the NBA of wanting to come in and be a star and be successful. There's only 30 openings, right? There's only 30 head coaches in the NBA, and only a few of them really reach that success, that pinnacle that they all want to get to. And I can only think of a couple off the top of my head that are really safe, that are just untouchable, completely untouchable. And then it's crazy to think that there's got to be, 20 coaches in the NBA that don't have that security.
Right.
And I started thinking about who it might be, and then I realized we need to take this to the show. You and I talked about it. So this is the hot seat. This is the coaching hot seat right here. And we're going to start today. We're doing the Eastern Conference. If we did the entire NBA, this would be a 6-hour episode. Don't want to do that. So we're going to do the East. The next episode, we're going to do the West. We're going to go down. I'm going to break down some of their records and stuff like that. And then we're going to decide, because these coaches take jobs where they're available, not necessarily where they want to live or where they're from. And we're going to decide how comfortable they are in their homes in these cities that they're coaching in. All right. So we're going to start with the Atlanta Hawks. I'm going alphabetical by city here. The Atlanta Hawks head coach is Nate McMillan. He's been there for 3 seasons. He's about to head into his 4th. His record as head coach of the Hawks is 70-50. Pretty good record.
Respectable.
His record last season, they were 43-39. Not great, just above 500. And then overall as a head coach, he's 731 and 638. So he's still got a winning record career-wise as a head coach. How comfortable is Nate McMillan in his Atlanta home right now?
I think Nate McMillan and his family are pulling up Zillow almost every day and taking a look at what's around, what's the market like right now. They're not putting their house for sale. They haven't put everything in boxes, but I'm sure his wife is coming home and is like, have you ever thought about like Gary, Indiana? We can get a really nice place for, look, I think, like you said, the record with the Hawks is, I think, better than I expected it to be. Do you feel the same way at 70-50? I think a lot of that is,
I think
he came in halfway through the season,
I think there might be recency bias in the way that we feel about that because of how last season started. But the year before was great, and so I think that has a lot to do with it. Yeah,
I mean, I think the Hawks have, they've done this weird thing. And when he took over, he took over halfway through a season. I'm correct in that, right? Okay, so, and I think when they took over, their record was pretty inflated because they took over and they went on a big run, right? And I kind of think since that, they've played closer to a 500 team in my mind. Like, last year going 43-39. The year before, they were not much further along than that. So I think this record is a little inflated compared to, the 2 real seasons that we've gotten to see him be the head coach from training camp all the way till whenever their season ends.
Yeah.
And, I think fairly he's been criticized for a lack of, let's call it, imagination on offense. And he's been saved by Trae Young's just sort of greatness on that end of the floor. But look, she's looking up Zillow every day, but in a couple months, if they go off to a 20-5 5 start. You know, they're off to a great start, and DeJounte Murray looks like a great fit. I think they could be looking at Zillow for a house upgrade because we might be seeing a contract extension.
Yeah.
So I kind of think he's right in the middle here, but I would lean a little hot. I don't know how you feel about that. I think like if they don't get off to a good start, right? If they don't get off to a good start, it feels like he's the guy who will be first blamed, first let go, because you know Travis Schlenk has made a huge gamble here on DeJounte Murray. You know, they don't really have a lot of stuff to get better moving forward after this, unless they're willing to trade some of their young players, which in theory you don't want to do that, right? You want to have all the guys you drafted, this team that you sort of handpicked, be your team. And so if you're him, I think before you trade a Okongwu or something like that, you'd look to move on from the coach. So
yeah, I agree with that. And I got to correct one thing there. So he's going into his 3rd season as coach for for the Hawks. He took over at the end of the 2021 season. And they went 27-11.
Right.
So,
exactly.
That is definitely adding to those numbers. But yeah, I'm with you. They're window shopping houses, right? Just kind of like, what if? Let's just take a look at the market and see what's going on.
Yep.
I do think that they're pretty unpacked in their home, but they're just kind of, let's just see. Let's see what other cities cost. All right. Next, we got the Boston Celtics. Ime Udoka. He's only coached 1 season so far. That was last year, and they went to the finals. Their record was 51-31. It was his first year as a head coach in the NBA. First year as head coach for the Boston Celtics. That man spent his entire summer unpacking. He's putting the tchotchkes on the shelves. Like everything has been done. He's doing some work on the house. He made some upgrades. They painted a couple rooms. I think that he's pretty, like something catastrophic would have to happen for him to lose this job this next season. And you know, maybe I didn't phrase this in the beginning. This is talking about their security for this upcoming season. We're not looking any past that.
Yeah. No, obviously 100% agreement. The guy is married to one of my favorite 90s actresses, Nia Long, and she's going to the neighbors. She's bringing pies. Yeah. She's introducing herself around the block. She's probably signed up for some local things, some local council stuff. You know, they're intrinsing themselves into this community. They are planning to stay here in Boston for a long time. He's going nowhere. In fact, I would... Hey, maybe I'm going too hot here, but I would venture to say that his seat is more secure than the man who hired him. If this season goes poorly, I could see Brad Stevens be the fall guy as opposed to Ime Udoka.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's more to draw from with Brad Stevens. You know, you've been with this longer. You've had more time to kind of put this thing together. So, yeah, I would agree with that. But, okay, we're in agreement there. We got the Brooklyn Nets. This is the one that kicked it all off. Steve Nash. You know, Bobby Marks said was it Bobby Marks or Sean Marks? I get those mixed up.
Bobby Marks, I'm assuming. Oh, well, Sean Marks is
Bobby
the GM.
Marks, I think. Yeah. So Sean Marks has said, or I think Bobby Marks was the one who said, neither of those guys are going anywhere. Steve Nash is our coach. It's who we hired. This is what we're sticking with. Now, 2 seasons with the Nets, 44-38 last season, 92-62 overall as a head coach in his seasons with the Brooklyn Nets. Where are you at with Steve Nash here?
Oh boy. Well, look, he's in a unique situation, I think, compared to almost every coach in the NBA, which is that he played in the closest to the modern era than any of these players, played for a long period of time, also was a, you know, max level player, has made a tremendous amount of money in his career, you know, is
2-time MVP,
just extremely comfortable financially, and also career wise with where he's at. He's a Hall of Fame player. He doesn't need this job, but good Lord, the people around him are begging him to look at Zillow. They are begging him, please, please, God, can we just go home? Can we get out of here? You don't seem happy. Can we go home? Please, please. I don't want to be in Brooklyn anymore. I hate this place. I think that's what his whole family is saying. And he's just kind of ignoring them. And he's like, no, it's fine. It's cool. Don't worry about it. But I think everyone around him is probably like, just get the fuck out of here. You don't need this. You don't need this.
Yeah, Steve Nash might have the most leverage. I don't know if leverage is the right word, but of any coach in the NBA, because of what you just said, like he had the Hall of Fame career. You know, he had all the sponsorships. He made a ton of money from that. He has a chain of gyms in Canada. He's got all of this passive income.
Yeah, I think he has a stake
somehow
in
tied into.
I think he has a stake in soccer.
Soccer somehow.
Yeah,
yes.
I believe he has a stake in an English soccer team.
Yeah, so he has all of this passive income. He is like the ultimate, you know, we've talked about this, about other things, about how there's nothing scarier than somebody who has nothing to lose. And that's Steve Nash. Like, this is truly a hobby. Like, they almost won't fire him because he doesn't care. Like you can't use that as motivation for Steve Nash. Like, hey, you got to turn this around or we're going to have to let you go. Steve Nash is like, I don't give a shit, dude. Like, do whatever you want. Like it's almost like emotionless. Like, he's like, yeah, I'll stick around and coach. Like, yeah, I have fun doing this, but like, if you guys need to get rid of me, it's all good. Like, I'll go back to my compound in Vancouver and just kind of hang out. Don't worry about me.
And I think Sean Marks is in a very interesting position with this decision specifically, or Steve Nash's future, because normally we say, yeah, the GM's first move, go ahead and just fire the coach. It's an easy way to, you know, quell the fan base for a couple months, at least get them off your back for a while. I think in this situation, because of the uniqueness of Steve Nash, the uniqueness of the Kevin Durant situation, it really wouldn't do much for him and his job security and the way the fans feel about him. Sean Marks, I'm saying, if they did fire Steve Nash. So I think it's a really weird position for everybody right now. I think probably the best thing for everybody to do is just stay where they are and figure it out later, you know, if it doesn't work out. So I kind of expect Steve Nash to stick around because he's one of the only coaches I've ever seen, probably the only one I've ever seen in this exact situation where there's really no upside to firing him, right? Like usually there's some kind of upside for management to fire him. And I just think in this situation, this very unique situation, unless they have somebody that is a no-brainer to take over for him, it just feels like, you know, they're kind of stuck with what they have.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, next we got the Charlotte Hornets. Steve Clifford, technically
going back
0 seasons with this franchise, quote unquote, because he was not there last year. They just rehired him, but he has had a tenure with the Hornets already. 7 years as a head coach. I thought a
respectable tenure. Yeah.
Yeah, 7 years as a head coach. His coaching career numbers 292 to 345. He's got a losing record as a head coach. But this will be his first season back with the Hornets. Now, you know, the Hornets are in an interesting position, right? Like they got their young star. They have added nice pieces. They've got a team that knows how to score. They can't really defend, but they're exciting. You know, eyes are on the Hornets now for the first time in a long time, it feels like. I actually want to say that he is pretty. I feel like he unpacked his boxes already. One, because he's like, well, you know, first run, I'll get a chance here. But I also think that there's a little bit of like, it's Jordan. Jordan doesn't really care about how basketball is working out for the Hornets. As long as he's collecting a check at the end of the day, he doesn't really seem to care all that much about what's going on with this franchise. I think I'm good. Like the fact that they brought me back after having a losing record already with this franchise, I think I'm good. I feel pretty, he has the boss that just kind of doesn't really, make money and do whatever you want. I don't really care.
Checked out boss. Yeah, no, I think that's fair. But look, I think Steve Clifford in his original time with the Hornets, there was some excitement around the team. It was the Kemba Walker years. They did make the playoffs at one point. And we're a respectable team who kind of hit their ceiling, it felt like, right? And they moved on from him.
Yeah.
And they went into this sort of rebuild, and they came out of it with LaMelo Ball. And now Steve Clifford's back. And he's a great defensive coach. He's sort of an old school, old timey guy. And it felt like maybe the Hornets were lacking direction. And I kind of actually understand Michael Jordan's hire here. I feel like Steve Clifford he's a game manager. He's a guy he's going to go out there and he's going to have people like play. You got to defend to play for him, right? That's important.
Yeah.
Even in Orlando, he has a strong preference for defense, a strong preference for defensive players. And he also, with his time with Kemba and stuff like that, seemed pretty open to, he wasn't a very rigid offensive coach from what I've seen. It seems like he sort of figures out who the best players are, builds it around them. But most importantly, he's trying to get these guys to defend. I think he's really happy where he's at. I'm with you with, his house is fine. He's been unpacking. I think he's probably just been living somewhere between Florida and Charlotte this entire time, just sort of driving back and forth between, hoping one of these will pick him back up. So I think his apartment in Charlotte, he kind of never gave it up, like secretly, like his wife was like, yeah, we live in Orlando.
He never sold the house.
You're right. He never sold the house.
He never sold the house. When he moved out to go to Orlando, he looked at the house and said, it's not goodbye. See you later.
Yep. And he didn't tell his wife about it, but now he's told her, and now they've looked it up on Zillow, and it's actually gone up in value a ton. And it was a great investment, and it was the right move for him. So I think Steve's in a great place. It's an exciting time to be a Hornets fan, and I think he will bring some stability to that team.
Okay. All right. Next, we got Billy Donovan. So, 3rd year with the Bulls, 7th year as a head coach. Last year, the record was 46-36. This is interesting. Here's his record as the Bulls head coach: 77-77. He's exactly 500 as the Bulls head coach. His career record, 320-234, which was actually better than I was expecting. I don't know why, but I was not expecting that much of a winning record from Billy Donovan career-wise. But this one is interesting to me because I think at first you're like, yeah, they had a great season last year. Injuries derailed it a little bit. But, there was a point in the season where they looked like they were one of the best teams in the East. They kind of figured some stuff out. Yeah, I think, I think it's easy to say that he feels pretty comfortable. But part of me thinks about maybe that kind of flash in the pan that we saw of what they could be all together could work against him here. And if they don't get back to that, or it feels like they're taking a step back, I feel like he could be in serious trouble. I think that he might just this summer he had a yard sale. Let's say that. He had a yard sale. He was like, let me just kind of slim down on the possessions a little bit to make any potential move a little easier. Won't have to pack as much.
Yep.
But he's not packing anything up yet. But he's just kind of, let me trim the fat a little bit on my ownings here, and we'll see what happens. But that one's tough for me because I want to say that he's comfortable, but I feel like last year might have actually worked against him in some ways in terms of his job security going into this next season.
Yeah, I mean, again, we always have to look at what management has done. Management has taken some pretty big swings here. And again, you always have the coach to fall back on. I think, in his personal life, he's probably telling people he feels really safe. He's telling the people around him, I feel safe, I feel good. And at night, when it's just him in bed and his wife is falling asleep and she's snoring, he pulls out his phone and he just takes a look. He looks back at his old house in OKC. He looks back. He's like, that was a great house. Maybe I could go back there. I don't know. No. I'm good. He tries to not convince himself, but in his darkest moments, he sits there and he's like,
yeah.
He looks around the house and he's like, God, it's going to cost a lot to move this place if we got to move. And that's when the yard sale came. And, again, no one suspected anything. It's just a normal yard sale. No big deal. But deep in his heart, he knew.
Yeah.
I'm getting rid of stuff for a reason, but I'm feeling good. I'm going to project that I'm feeling good. We're going to go into the season feeling good. And then especially when he got that text that Lonzo Ball's not going to start the season, it was like, okay, yard sales on Saturday. We're doing it.
Yeah. We're doing a yard garage combo sale.
Yes.
Okay, I like that. Next, we got the Cleveland Cavaliers, a really fun story last year. We've got always the bridesmaid, never the bride, JB Bickerstaff, head coach, going into his 4th season as their head coach, really the 3.5, considering how he took over, which has kind of been JB Bickerstaff's career story is assistant coach, head coach gets fired, he becomes interim. This is the first time that he's like stuck around as a head coach after that incident has happened. 6 years as a head coach in the NBA. Last season, they were 44-38. Solid season from them. Really fun, really exciting. His overall record as the Cavs head coach is 71-94, and his career record is 156 to 225. So not great, but I think there's some context there, and it's that he's been assistant on some pretty bad teams, bad enough to fire a head coach, and he's had to kind of pick up some pieces. And so I'm not going to hold a losing record against him. All right.
I agree.
I'm not willing to do that quite yet.
He's been part of some rebuilds, including this one, right? Like, I mean, to get Evan Mobley, they had to lose a lot of games.
Yeah.
So that certainly inflates the loss numbers here at the 94 losses. But you look, I think looking at last season is probably a lot closer to his first real season as like, hey, these are a group of guys that we feel good about going into the season, and a respectable 44-38.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't look at the Cavs as a rebuilding team necessarily, but they are young. So I think that there's some flexibility that he has there. If they can build, I mean, they just got Donovan Mitchell. If they continue to develop Mobley, Jared Allen stays an amazing rim protector and rebounder. I think it's only going to get better. I think Bickerstaff is pretty comfortable in the city of Cleveland. I think that he is, he's visiting the yard sales. He's collecting belongings right now. He's not getting rid of them.
Yes.
He's like, well, I could add to this place a little bit. I'm feeling after this last season, I think I need some artwork up here. I think I need a vintage glass set. I need to go see what's out there. And so I think that's where he's at. I think he feels pretty good going into this next season.
I agree. I think he's got himself a little runway here. And again, I kind of think he's the right coach. And I think that they really smartly locked on to him. And then drafting Mobley, who I think what we all love about him is his defensive, I don't know, what would you call it? IQ? Prowess, yeah, right. And the thing, again, we know about Bickerstaff is he will not play you if you don't defend. So this is a team that's going to have to defend. They're building their team around a defensive player. They at least have 2-3 seasons, I think, here of time to let Bickerstaff see what he can do with these guys. Obviously, there's a little pressure added with this Donovan Mitchell situation. There's no question.
Yeah.
I think he has 2 years remaining on his deal and then a player option. So I think JB's kind of looking at Donovan Mitchell's situation and saying, I have about this run, right? Like, about the amount of time until we have to make a decision on Donovan Mitchell. So I think he's probably going to his accountant and saying, hey, I've got about 2 years here to build up a little wealth. What can we do with the savings account? He's fine where he's at, but it's a short window of I feel comfortable for about 2 more seasons, and then we'll see.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's fair. All right. I'm just going to give the numbers here, and I'm going to let you cook on this one because this is your team. Detroit Pistons, Dwayne Casey going into his 5th season as their head coach, 13 years as a head coach in the NBA. Last year, the Pistons were 23-59. His overall record with the Pistons has been 104-198. And his head coaching career record is 477-505. What's Dwayne Casey up to these days? How comfortable is he in Detroit?
Yeah, I mean, look, they're a fascinating team. Obviously, they're going to be playing, I assume, the youngest team in the NBA. I think this year they'll probably end up being just who's logging the most minutes. So I don't expect them to win a lot. I don't think the team expects them to win a lot. So you feel like, hey, he's probably pretty safe for this season. And I love my favorite thing about Dwayne Casey is the person that he is, right? I think he's an incredible mentor, an incredible person to surround your players with, like in terms of like the person that you want them to be, the person that you want them to become outside of basketball, you know, a pillar of the community, all that type of stuff. The long-term outlook for Dwayne Casey, I think, is pretty grim. And I think he probably knows that. I don't think he's the coach that's going to take them to the playoffs. I don't think he's the coach that will be the one who gets to see the fruits of this. I think we'll probably be looking back in 10 years and, you know, guys like Cade are going to be like, hey, I'm really happy I spent my first few years with Dwayne Casey. He's a great guy, great person to learn from. But eventually, I think they will move on from him. I think Dwayne probably knows that. He's probably smart enough to know that that's going on. So he's looking at houses. He's considering his options. But this season, I think he feels super safe where he's at. Yeah. The house is fine.
I think
he's
that's
not
fair.
Looking to sell the house. He hasn't called a real estate agent or anything like that. But he sat down with the family and said, hey, 2 years, where do we want to live? You know, do we want to live in Europe? Do we want to go to France? You know, hopefully, you know, I'm assuming he's gotten a great paycheck for being the head coach of the Pistons here. I hope nothing but the best for Dwayne Casey. But this year he will remain in Detroit, probably his last year, I'm thinking. But there may be 2 years here.
Yeah, I think he called Mark Jackson and was like, hey, I'm basically you with the Warriors. How'd you get this job at ESPN? Can you start to just kind of sprinkle my name into conversations just to plant the seed? Because I feel like I might be sitting with you in a microphone in a couple years.
Exactly.
See what you can do for me.
He's texting Allie LaForce, you know, what's going on at NBA TV? What's going on at TNT? He's weighing his options for the future, but looking forward to a fun Detroit basketball season this year, and probably feeling pretty comfortable with everything he has, knowing that there's not a lot of expectations.
Agreed. All right, we got the Pacers up next with legend Rick Carlisle. Just finished his first season as the Indiana head coach. He's got 20 years in the league as a head coach. Last year they were 25-57. His career record, however, is 861-746.
Wow.
I feel like Rick is as safe as he wants to be. I don't think this is a front office decision. I think Carlisle is... I think he wants to be there, honestly. And I think that he's bought, you know, a house next to his that he's turned into a guest house for people who want to come stay. And he's like, you can stay in the guest house next to us. You know, I've fully furnished it. I've done all of that. Because it's funny, when you think about Rick Carlisle, you think about his success as a coach. I mean, I just laid out 861 wins. He's got a winning record. You think about him winning the title in 2011 with Dirk. You know, you think about the success of getting Doncic and becoming a team in the West that people are paying attention to. But we forget about he was the head coach in those years between Dirk and Luka, where they were not a good team, and he really helped build that up. And in fact, he helped build up the Dirk team. And I think that Obviously, he left Dallas because there were some personality issues, relationship issues with him and Doncic, and I think that he kind of was like, I'm done here. And he looked at the Pacers. I have a feeling that they kind of told him to begin, like, hey, look, we're going to start tearing this thing apart. You know, like we're going to go into a full rebuild. Just want you to know that on the front end. And he was probably excited by that. He was like, I like taking a young team, putting pieces together and turning them into something that is great. And I think that that's exactly what he's doing. You know, I think he's been in this league long enough that the excitement for him is the challenge. And he looked at the Pacers as a challenge. And so he's taking it on. I think the front office is like, look, it's you. Whatever you want to do, go for it. You're here as long as you want to, and I think that he's solidly planted in his new home in Indiana.
I agree. I think he bought his last house ever. I think this will be I think he will. Indiana is his final place. You know, however long, like you said, however long he wants to stay, he'll probably get that chance. And once they either ask him to leave or he decides to leave, I don't think he's going anywhere. I don't think he's selling that house. Yeah. He's staying in Indiana. You know, he's sort of returning to his roots. We know he's sort of from this area and all that stuff. So I'm with you. I think he and his family probably bought their dream home, and this is where they will spend the rest of their days. Good for Rick.
Yeah, agreed. All right, this next one's going to be quick. It's Miami Heat. Eric Spoelstra, 15 years, 53 and 29 last year. 660 to 453 as a head coach for the Miami Heat in his career. It's the only team that he's coached as a head coach. He is the safest guy on this list. They could go 0 and 82 next year, and Eric Spoelstra would be the coach the following season. I don't think Spo is going anywhere. You know, one of the greatest talents to ever play the game was on his team in LeBron, and wanted him fired, and was told, no, this is your coach. Deal with it. Do whatever you need to get over that. We're not getting rid of Eric Spoelstra. He is the Eastern Conference Popovich. I think he is probably the least touchable coach in the Eastern Conference.
I don't think that's unfair. I think that's totally true. I will put it like this, and we'll move on from him. I think he's looking more at what is Pat Riley's future? How long is Pat Riley going to be here? And that determines how much longer he will stay in Miami and what his future is. Once Pat Riley leaves, I think all opportunities, all options will be open eventually. I don't think once Pat Riley leaves that it's like, oh, Spo's going to take over. I don't necessarily think so. I think Spo is Pat Riley's guy. And as long as Pat is here trying to win, which he's always trying to win every single season, Spo will be there. But once Pat's gone, maybe a new GM comes in and says, hey, I want to rebuild from the ground up, and maybe Spo wants no part of it. Maybe he doesn't want Spo to be a part of it. So in the short term, I completely agree with you. He couldn't be more safe. But he's looking at, like, what's Pat Riley's future? How long is Pat Riley going to be around here? That, I think, ties him to the team, if that makes sense.
Interesting. I would push back slightly. I would just say I think that Mickey Arison probably has a great relationship with him as the owner of the Heat. And I mean, to fire Eric Spoelstra would be a crazy day in Miami. They would have to really consider that and what the fan reaction to that would be. But
for sure,
this upcoming season, untouchable. Let
me just slightly push back on that. That I think Mickey Arison, one thing you could say about him as an owner that is really impressive is the guy is very hands-off in the right way. He will pay the tax, he will pay for what you need, but he's not going to get involved in the decisions. So that's why I say, look, Pat Riley leaves. He hires a new GM that he feels like is the best GM. And that GM says, we're rebuilding. It's going to take 5 years. I don't think Spo's the guy. I think Mickey Arison is the type of owner to say, if you think that's what's best, I hired you to do this job. I believe that we're going to go that way. So, again, I'm with you in the short term. This version of the Miami Heat, the Jimmy Butler, Pat Riley, insane, we're trying to win one more time before I go.
Yeah.
He's good there.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. All right. Next, we got the Milwaukee Bucks. Mike Budenholzer, 5 seasons with the Bucks. This is crazy. When I was putting this list together, and I realized that Budenholzer and Dwayne Casey have been with their respective teams the same amount of time, it blew my mind. It felt like Budenholzer had been in Milwaukee so much longer than Dwayne Casey has been in Detroit. That's crazy to me. It's his 9th year as a head coach in the NBA. Last season, the Bucks were 51-31. Obviously, you know, they just won a title 2 years ago. Here, this one's crazy to me because it's funny when you talk about coaches on the hot seat. How many times have we heard about Bud maybe being fired in Milwaukee since he's been the head coach? Dude, here's his record as the Bucks head coach: 213-96. That's an incredible record. How has this guy ever been considered to be fired as the head coach of this team? It's crazy. He's got an incredible record. Yeah. His record as a head coach in the league, 426-293. That's a great record. I think that Bud is... I think he started buying bucks of his own on his property, and he's got, you know, a few acres of just buck deers walking around, and he is firmly there. I think after that title, he finally unpacked the boxes. When he won the title, he opened the last of the boxes and put everything where it's supposed to be in the house.
Yeah, I think there was a moment 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, where everything was
he
in
didn't
boxes.
unpack for like 3.5 years.
Yeah, everything was in boxes. He was just living in a state of constant takeout and just never, you know, pulling out the pans, never cooking a home cooked meal, just going through the drive-through, hitting DoorDash every day. I think you're right. He's super safe here. I mean, dude, that record, 213-96, that is almost a 700 win percentage. That is almost 70% win, which is impossible. It really is. Like, it cannot be overstated enough. No team in any sport wins at a 70% clip. None. It's unheard of. It's absolutely unheard of. It is completely dominant. He'd proven everything. Once they got the right pieces in place, they won the championship. In my opinion, he's the safest coach on this list, unless, of course, Giannis says, I want a different coach, which, you know, that's a factor that you can't really place. But look, Giannis, I mean, the guy didn't want Jason Kidd to go. He didn't want Bud to go. Yeah. He loves whoever's around him. He's good. He's good. This team is... Yeah. I just... the win percent, I cannot get over that. 213-96. I cannot get over that. That is... unheard of.
It's incredible. That's an incredible record. And this is the guy who set the win record on his last stop as a head coach in Atlanta and got 4 players from his team into the All-Star game.
I got to see. Okay, wait. What's the win percentage of his entire career? So he's 426-293. He's almost at a 60% clip for his entire career. You know, it's unheard of. It really is. It's unheard of. So yeah, he's got to be the winningest coach in the NBA. There's no way that there's anyone coming even close to him. So, no,
amazing. I think Pop has that title.
Really? I'd be curious to see the totals there.
Actually, but, I think there might be a name coming up that might be up there too, but we'll get to that. So next we've got the New York Knicks. Tom Thibodeau, 3rd year, 10 years as a head coach. Last year they were 37-45. This one surprised me a little bit too. 78-76 is the Knicks head coach. I was not expecting a winning number there, but I guess 2 years ago they had a good run. Head coaching record, 430-322. I feel like Tibbs is... He moved this summer from his penthouse Manhattan apartment into a 1-bedroom quaint little place in Brooklyn. Like he is, he downgraded. And I think that he's close to not being there. I think that Rose is looking at him and going, get to a hot start or you're out. You know, we've had enough of this. They're at that point, I think, the Knicks are.
I think he probably was like, no, we're good. I'm going to stay in the penthouse. And his wife and kids are like, well, we're going back to Ohio. And you can... You can get your own apartment wherever you like here in New York. No big deal. But we're not sticking around. So go ahead and let us know when you're going to meet up with us again. But yeah, go get your nice little 1-bedroom over there. We'll come visit you sometimes. But
yeah.
We don't see a future here. And he's like, no, where's the future? We're good. I swear.
Don't pack. Don't pack.
Julius is going to come through for me this year. I swear. I swear he is. It's going to be him and
Derek
Rose
on the team. Come on.
Come on. We got this. Don't move.
Yeah, he's a little delusional, but yeah, I think he's I'm looking at this list. He might be on the hottest seat in the Eastern Conference.
I have him as the second.
The first one to go.
I have him as the second hottest seat in the Eastern Conference right now.
Okay. Fair enough.
We'll get there.
But he's
we're going to be there soon.
It's
but it's
shaky
it's
territory.
Hot.
Oh, you're totally. I know. I already know, and I completely agree. All right. Next, Orlando Magic. Jamal Mosley. 22-60 last year as the head coach. He's going into his second season. He's got no other head coaching experience behind him. I think he's safe. I think he's fine. I think I think they're looking at a losing year. I think that they're expecting that. I think the main thing for him is that the GM wants to see some development with some of the young guys, but I think they're going to play really young. I think that they're just going to see what they have, experiment all year, not worry about the record, maybe get into the lottery one more time to add just an extra piece, and then I think the pressure's on. But this year, I think he's at Disney World right now, having the time of his life, not really worried about it. I think that Jamal Mosley probably pretty comfortable right now in Orlando, as comfortable as anybody can be in Orlando, Florida.
100%. Couldn't agree with you more. I just have a question for you, really, which is, you watch this team a little closer than I do. And my question really is, what do you think? And maybe we just don't know yet. Maybe we just don't know. Like I commented earlier on a guy like JB Bickerstaff, where we have 400 games of information to say, like, look, this guy is a defensive coach. His philosophy really comes down to that side of the ball. He's going to play guys who are to defend more than score, right? Like, we just sort of know his philosophy of what he likes to play. Do we know what Jamal Mosley's basketball philosophy is yet? Like, do we know what direction he sees this team moving in?
I think what it is a I don't think it's I haven't seen anything like X's and O's wise that I'm like, oh, that's his, go-to. But I think it's more of like a like philosophical outlook. And what I saw with the Magic last season, right? They were 22-60. It was a really brutal record. Yeah. Lots of losing. But, I know that I joke about calling him the sleeping giant and all of this stuff, But part of that is because of what I was watching last year was I think that team was way better than the record that they had. Like what I saw was a team that never hung their heads. There's so many Magic teams that I've seen that were bad and they just resigned themselves to being bad. And in the second half, there just wouldn't be a lot of effort. But this team played hard all the way through, they had a lot of close games. They kept things competitive, and it might be something where in the fourth quarter, they just didn't have the talent and they kind of burned out and it wasn't there. But I saw a lot of kind of just the grittiness, this like, doesn't matter. You're down 20 going into halftime. You're going to play like you're down 2 when that third quarter starts. You're gonna just go hard, and that's what I saw from them. And I think that that's what Jamal Mosley is bringing to this team, and I love that for a young team. I absolutely love that for a young team.
Yeah, totally. And I think it should be stated here. Look, like it's an exciting team for Jamal Mosley to be, going for this season. Obviously, Paolo Banchero, the early results are as good as anyone could ever possibly hope for, let alone has anyone seen what Franz Wagner is doing in Eurobasket right now. He is absolutely torching the competition. He looks like one of the 5 best players in Eurobasket right now. It's an exciting time to be Jamal Mosley. And I think we're going to see more of what that identity is. Like you're saying, yes, I agree with you. They did play really hard. I actually thought the second half of last season, they were a far better team than they were at the beginning of the season, which is a really good sign, I think, from like, it seems like he got players to buy into whatever it was that he was preaching. Yeah. There's going to be a bigger sample size, more versatility with a guy like Paolo and Franz, who are guys who are very versatile. You can kind of play them in different positions. So I think we're going to see a lot of what type of coach he is. It'll be very interesting.
Totally. But I think he's fine where he is. I don't think he's even looking at other cities right now.
Absolutely.
All right. Here's a fun one. Philadelphia 76ers. Doc Rivers. It's going into his 3rd season as the Sixers head coach. He's the most tenured coach in the Eastern Conference, which is crazy because if I just blindly, you gave me the list of coaches and asked me who's been a head coach the longest, I would have said Rick Carlisle. No, Doc has 23 years as a head coach in the NBA.
Unbelievable.
I know. Crazy. I mean, like, I get it. And I would have been like, yeah, Doc's up there too. But like, I for sure thought Rick Carlisle had been in the league as a head coach longer than Doc Rivers.
Yeah.
51-31 last year, 154 as the Sixers head coach. This is a crazy one. Head coaching numbers, 143 to 735. Or I'm sorry, 1,043 to 735.
Yep.
He's got over 1,000 wins under his belt.
Yeah, that's incredible.
That's
unbelievable.
I mean, 200 more wins than Rick Carlisle. Like that's wow. So
again, back to the win percentage, he's at a 58% winning clip, which is obviously incredible for that long of a career.
I mean, two 60+ seasons in Boston.
Yep, and then you said 23 years. He took over in 1999 for the Orlando Magic, and we're talking about teams that were going around 500, playing over their heads. And then when it's all said and done now in 2022, the guy's at a 60% win clip. Yeah, I mean, he is one of the great coaches of all time, one of the great winners of all time. Yet, do we agree that Doc Rivers has the hottest seat in the NBA right now? That's my opinion. I think...
He's living in a U-Haul storage unit right now. He's not even in an apartment. He's not in a house. He's
showering
the
at the golf
storage
course.
Unit monthly.
Yeah, he's showering at the golf course every day.
100%.
Yeah.
Look, he knows. He's got it. Well, I don't know. Doc Rivers doesn't have the greatest sense of self-awareness, but look, Daryl Morey is going to bed every night, walks up to his bed, gets down on his knees, elbows on the mattress, and he starts to pray before he gets under the sheets. And he says, please let this team start out slow next season so that I can get rid of Doc and bring Mike D'Antoni in here.
Okay, conspiracy theory. No, go ahead. Go ahead. Actually, no.
We're talking about where these guys, how they're living, if they've unpacked. Mike D'Antoni, last time he was on a NBA team in a coaching capacity, he was an assistant coach with the Brooklyn Nets. He's still in his Brooklyn apartment. He's packed it up. Everything is packed up. It's actually sitting on the truck. The truck is sitting outside of his place. He just has a folding beach chair and a microwave left in his home in Brooklyn. And he's just paper plating it, waiting for that call to say, hey, drive an hour and a half over here. We got a head coaching job for you. He fully knows. He was like, I'm not going to leave the East Coast. I'll stay here in Brooklyn. It's nice. There's good food, good stuff for me to go check out. I'll go check out a Broadway show. Kind of wait because I'm just waiting for that call, because that's coming soon. And I'll be in Philly before I know it. And that's exactly, dude, Doc Rivers has to go like 20-2 to start the season to feel any kind of sense of security this next year.
I'm with you. Like I said, conspiracy theory. Montrezl Harrell was added to this roster.
The sabotage. I'm with you.
Is this a sabotage from Daryl Morey?
Yes.
Because he knows he's going to play him too much. He knows that he's
100%.
I'm with you. I think Daryl is just, he could not be more ready. He didn't hire Doc Rivers. He never wanted to hire Doc Rivers. But the fact is, it's like I laid it out at the beginning. He's one of the great coaches of all time. I don't care what anybody says. He's one of the great coaches of all time. He's one of the most winning coaches of all time. One of the most respected people in basketball, period. You can't just fire him for no reason. You need cause for someone of his stature. So he's trying to do it in like a sneaky way. Like, I'm going to sign PJ Tucker and stuff, but I'm going to give you some pieces that you're going to get a little too attached to that I can fairly fire you for at some point.
And it's a pretty good plan too, because it's looking at it going, okay, I know that he's fallen in love with Montrezl Harrell before, and he has overplayed him to the detriment of the team. But Montrezl Harrell is, Sixth Man of the Year award winner. He's a great regular season player with lots of energy. We need energy and speed on this team. So it makes sense on paper. This is also a guy who has a pretty notorious history of being a locker room issue, being really brooding and not the easiest to get along with, and can really like bring things down. I mean, he got in a physical altercation last season with a teammate at halftime in the locker room. So if it doesn't work out for me on the court, it can create some issues inside the locker room. And then I can say, I think Doc has lost the locker room and we need to get a new voice in here.
Yep. Oh, and I also I traded Montrez. I got a good deal. I don't know where it came from. I also traded him. I don't know.
Yeah. I traded him for a former Rocket.
And
that's exactly
Doc. Let's end it here. You've been a great coach in this league. Just go play golf. Come on TV sometimes. Love to have you around. You're a great speaker, a great human being that I want advocating for the NBA and advocating for people. Let's keep your job there. I think this may be Doc's final coaching stop, which is interesting to say at his age, but I really do believe that his reputation and all that stuff there's no upside left for him. I agree. He's a Hall of Fame coach with what he has. I think it's probably time that this is it for him.
Yeah, I agree with you. They'll say, Doc, thank you for your service. In fact, we appreciate you so much that Mike D'Antoni has already packed your boxes for you. All right, next we've got the Toronto Raptors. Nick Nurse, 4 seasons with the Raptors. They were 48-34 last year, 186 to 122 as their head coach. He hasn't head coached anywhere else. One of my favorite head coaches in the NBA. He was named to the All-Stars this last season. He, I think, is a golden goose. I think he is a prince. He's a king among princes in Toronto. He's had a winning record since he got there. I love him as a head coach, not just because he's kind of a weirdo, but also because he is not afraid to try new things and kind of get weird with his systems and experimenting. And I love that in a head coach. Look, they were better than I was expecting them to be last season. I think Nick Nurse is he might have dual citizenship at this point. I think he applied for dual citizenship this summer, and he's Toronto through and through at this point.
100%. I think he could probably defeat Justin Trudeau in a election. If he wants to run for mayor of Toronto, I'm sure he could do that.
Yeah, he's investing in Tim Horton franchises. He is firmly there. He is part of the culture at this point.
He is a firm Canadian. He couldn't be safer. Just from a coaching standpoint, look, last season they were sort of treading water. They had some injuries. He put the ball in Scotty Barnes' hands that nobody expected. So it's like every time you put a challenge in front of Nick Nurse, it seems like he rises to that challenge and not only rises, but finds a unique way to get there, challenges his own sense of it. Like, he might be my favorite coach in the NBA just because of what he's proven so far. The fans got to be ecstatic to have it. I'm sure the fans are coming over to his house every day, dropping off baked goods, hoping he doesn't want to leave. I feel like that's more where we're at now, is like all the neighbors are begging him to stay. Everyone in the country's begging him to stay. Like, please, do you need a better house? Do you need more money? What do you need? So,
absolutely.
He's on the sort of opposite track of some of these guys.
Completely. I couldn't agree more. All right, last one here in the Eastern Conference. The Washington Wizards. Wes Unseld Jr. He's only had one season with the Wizards. 35-47. He's got no other record outside of that. It was his first year as a head coach in the NBA. Tell me about Wes. Wes Jr. Is he feeling comfortable?
I don't know what to do with this one. I really don't. This is one that I don't know how to feel. I mean, look, he's the son of maybe the most famous Wizards player ever. Certainly up there. He's got that going for him. He certainly is, the name recognition for him is so high, and the respect for, his father and all that stuff, that I think he'll get a solid chance. But you can't say it with the Wizards. Who the hell knows? I mean, the one thing I will say about the Wizards, though, is, my God, are they loyal to the people that they hire or the people that they draft and stuff like that, If anything, one thing you could say about Ted Leonsis is the guy is very he's not trigger happy when it comes to stuff like that. He will stick with a GM for 20 years. He'll stick with a coach for 10. He'll give Bradley Beal a no trade clause. I mean, the man as an owner has been very, very loyal to a fault. So with his ties to the organization and all that stuff, it's hard for me to imagine him getting fired anytime soon, especially with how new of a coach he is. But God knows, man. God knows. I don't know what the Wizards' expectations are. I have no idea. The GM's Tommy Shepard, right? I don't know what Tommy Shepard's... Right, yeah, exactly. I don't know what Tommy Shepard's like. What do you think he thinks would be a successful season for the Wizards this season? Like, how many games do they have to win to be like, oh, this was a great season, this is what we hoped for?
I have no idea. I think over 500 and they would be ecstatic, which is crazy. I think that they should be setting the bar higher than that. But I really don't know how to read the Washington Wizards and what they want to do anymore.
Like 40,
I just have no idea what their plan is.
40 plus. I mean, right? I mean, you got to be a winning team, right? I think if you're going to give Brad Beal the deal that they just gave him with the no trade clause and all that, you got to think you're going to be a good team. At least a respectable team, right? So I think probably 45 wins, which I don't like the odds there. I really don't. I don't like the odds of them.
I don't either. I don't know.
Wins.
I'm not confident that they'll be over 500 at all.
I'm not either. But I'm not like writing it off. Do you feel the same way? Like, I'm not saying they can't be.
It's possible. I have no idea. I can't say that I am very confident in it. That's all I can say. But I mean, look, Bradley Beal's great. It could happen, right? Like, Bradley Beal could have an MVP season, right? Like, I have no idea, but I've just seen enough from this team to not trust anything.
Yeah, I mean, is Johnny Davis going to save this team? I don't think so. It just doesn't feel like that's a realistic thing to happen. He may end up being a very good player, right? He may end up being a very good player. We have no idea. And maybe some of these guys that haven't hit in their first couple of years, like Rui, maybe they take a big step forward. That's got to be what they're hoping for.
Yeah.
In terms of Wes Unseld Jr., though, I don't know. His house is probably like half packed, half not packed. Like I feel like, I don't know if he's married. I'm just gonna say
He wears
he's
a
not.
name tag
He's definitely
every day.
Yeah. Like, oh yeah, I'm an
Wes
Unseld.
Unseld.
Just so you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
He wears his like Wizards like jogger every day. Like, hey.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's exactly what's happening.
That's funny. I think that's probably true.
I think he's actually kind of safe just because he's only got 1 year under his belt. I think that he's got a little bit of slack this upcoming season. But after that, anything is possible. But we'll see. Okay, that's the Western Conference, or that's the Eastern Conference. On our next episode, we're going to go through and take a look at the job security for head coaches in the Western Conference. Thank you all so much for joining us this week on this episode. Remember to hit subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. On today's, we're going to leave you today. I totally tripped over that. That was incredible. Today, we're going to leave you with a song by Loma Prieta.
Oh my gosh.
Which is a legendary band. You and I are both very good friends with Sean Leary from Loma, who is one of the greatest dudes to ever grace the planet. One of my favorite people in life.
Love him. Love this band. I've gotten to travel the country, Europe, Japan with these guys. So this is a very special band to me. I'm very glad they're coming on the show here.
Love it. And I'm throwing it back on this one. The song is Trilogy 3 Fall Days off their 2008 Blast City LP on Slave Union Records. Remember to be kind to yourselves, be kind to each other, live long and prosper. I don't know if you picked up on the Star Trek hints I put in, but today is National Star Trek Day. So engage.
Ding dong, the Queen is dead.